In this video, we're going to take a look at a green ink by Montblanc, Daniel Dafoe. Now, I said there's no relation to William, but I actually don't know that because I didn't look it up. I was just making it up. You tell me down in the description if they're actually related. I'm just lazy. Down in the description, there's timestamps you can skip around, but if you got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. I'll probably Google that after filming. Also, down in the description is a link to the green ink playlist, so if you'd like to see more green inks, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's take a look at the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, nice shading. Just look at how gently in and out of the shading that I'm not even going to try and point out all of the highs and lows of this ink because it is gorgeous. The extra fine is darker than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and amazing shading. 6 seconds to dry. Medium is lighter than the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, and amazing shading. 10 seconds to dry. I'm not going to do that every time. The scrubby for the extra fine doesn't show much color variation. The medium does, but that's because the extra fine scrubby is out of its mind. The shading in the writing is absolutely awesome, and I do think you could recover it if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Sailor 1911 ringless with a fine nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. Does it shade? Yes, it does. Very nicely. All over it. Again, this whole review, I'm not even going to bother pointing out all of the great shading. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub. No feather spread, halo sheen, and very, very nice shading. 10 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, and some very, very, very nice shading. 18 seconds to dry. Shows how well it shades because this paper, for me, does not seem to shade as well as some others. The scrubby for both do show some color variation, and we do get it in the writing and a smear test. I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And I love doing the multiple chromatographies because it really unlocks some of the secrets of these inks. At the bottom, we see this very grayish purple. It's a light grayish purple that when it's gathered, it looks much more gray. Now, as it moves up, you see this very nice yellow. Now, I don't believe this to be a green that's occurring here. I believe that to be the point where the turquoise at the top is mixing with this yellow. And that is what we're getting so much great shading from. How much of that mix is occurring along with that gray at the bottom, that purplish gray. The one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes before it's dunked in the water. And our most noticeable change between the two of them is the line at the bottom is, while it was darkened there the first time, it's much darker, much more there this time, showing that there may be a little bit of resistance to this ink. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. There's no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. Yes, it shades not nearly as well as it did in the other ones, but it does shade incredibly well. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, some very nice shading. Not as nice as on the other papers, but still very nice here. Now the extra 7 seconds to dry. The medium is darker than the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen. Great shading is back in play. 11 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both are showing some good color variation, and it's much better in the medium. Smear test you definitely could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, there's no reason in the world you couldn't use this in a note-taking situation. It doesn't budge. Very nice. Now, that's incredibly obvious when you look at the chromatographies and you saw what stayed, but there was the chance that some of it would move. Like in the water, you do see that it's moving a little bit of the darkest tone, but not a whole lot of it. Pen flush is starting to break it down, and you can see that the white of the paper is wanting to show through. The good news here, as you would expect with Montblanc inks, it only took water to get this out of my pen. And the 1/3 bleach solution is completely removing it from the paper and discoloring the paper just a little bit. The next writing sample is done on monocoque paper. Monocoque. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does shade very nicely. Not as nice, again, once we're moving down just a little bit, and it's good paper, but I think we're moving down. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, that great camouflage shading that we're seeing so much of. 7 seconds to dry. Medium is a little darker than the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen. The shading is much better than the extra fine. It was good in the extra fine, but it's much better in the medium. 10 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show color variation. We get it in the writing. Again, it does look so much better in the medium. The smear test says you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Montblanc's Daniel Dafoe has a viscosity of 2.72, making it normal. If you want to see how the viscosity tests are done and all that stuff for the bell curve, then down in the description is a link to that video. Now, let's take a look at the next writing sample done on Leuchtturm 1917 paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, some gentle in and out shading. Not that full camouflage shading that I would like. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. Very nice shading, much more of it than we're seeing in the stub. Not nearly like we've seen on the other papers. 6 seconds to dry. Medium is by far the darkest tone on the page. With no feather spread, halo sheen, it is really showing off the shading here. And I didn't want to do it, but I mean, if you look at how dark the is, and quick goes darker to lighter to darker, and brown goes darker to lighter to darker, and jumps goes light to dark, it's not the same camouflage shading we've seen in some of the other samples, but it is still really good here. 9 seconds to dry. Scrubby of the extra fine shows some color variation. Medium shows none, although I think what we see in the medium looks better than the extra fine. Smear test, you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Montblanc's Daniel Dafoe has an average dry time of 10 seconds, making it normal. The last writing sample is done on 20-pound copy paper. Now, there's only one spot that really matters here. We get a ton of spots that are coming through, but that one touched the page underneath, and that for me is a problem, but just because I do a lot of math. Math nerd. Teach math. I like math. I do bookkeeping on the side with another job. I get a lot of ghosting. This all would stop me from using the back of the page because it's going to destroy both sides of the information. That spot would stop me from using it with a medium, though we're not having any problems with the extra fine. The medium has tons of feathering all over it. It's tiny. It does spread to about a broad. No halo, no sheen, no shade. It looks bad. And such a good-looking ink to look bad, I don't know. Extra fine is lighter than the medium. It does have tiny feathering all over it, although this tiny feathering I don't see being a problem for people. It spreads to about a fine. No halo, no sheen, no shade. 1 second to dry. Scrubby shows some color variation, but we're not getting it in the writing. And the smear test, you can't smear it, so you could definitely recover it. Instead of finding inks that look like Montblanc's Daniel Dafoe, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a nice purple because for some reason I really like putting purples with pinks. I went with Diamine Violet. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Montblanc's Daniel Dafoe? This is an ink they need to bring back. Amazing camouflage shading and a great tone. Just a real standout ink all of the time. Sadly, I'm at the end of that sample, and if you can get some, try it. Jump at the opportunity. It is awesome. So what nib and pen will give the best writing experience with this ink? Now this is a much harder to find ink, and the really good news about it is it's dealer's choice. It looks good no matter what pen you put it into, which is good considering you would probably pay an arm and a leg to get a hold of a bottle of this. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video we're going to look at a stripper, Brandy Dazzle by Diamine.